let's go and talk about what happened in the last lesson. And what I'm going to start by saying is that in the last lesson, there was a 4-step process that we used to help us draw hyperbolas. So what was the very first step? Who would like to share with me the very first step that you can remember? So Tegabatso, what do you remember about that first step?
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
The first step, we identify the quadrant.
Okay, so we decide whether or not it's going to be in this quadrant, or
the
whether
second
it
and
be.
fourth.
Okay, can you remember what makes it go in those quadrants? Can you remember how we know?
So we know that we go on the first and third quadrant if it's positive, if all the points are positive, then we go to the second and fourth.
So if A is positive, yes. So if A is negative, we go in second and fourth. And if A, okay. Thank you, Tegavatso. That was great. So the first step was the correct quadrants. The second step was what? Who can remember the second step? Maybe I should give you an example that kind of helps your memory. Y equals 2 over x plus 4. And maybe we could say minus 2. That's an example hyperbola. What was the second step in my process? Maybe you can put it in the chat. Identify the quadrants, Annie said. Yeah, and then it's the asymptotes. Yeah, asymptotes. And the asymptotes are kind of like the dotted lines that go, there's a vertical asymptote and there's a horizontal asymptote. And the way we get those asymptotes is by looking at this number over here. So that will be an asymptote. So that'll be y equals minus 2. And then the other asymptote comes from making sure this denominator over here is 0. So x would be minus 4 would be the other asymptote in this example. Okay, what is step 3? What is step 3 in drawing a hyperbola? Who can remember? Yes, find the intercepts. And the intercepts are the y-intercept and the x-intercept. Now, sometimes there will be no y-intercept or no x-intercept, but it just depends on the particular situation that is going on, and you have to work that out as you go. And then the fourth step is to draw the hyperbola. So that's all we need to know. What I suggest doing is you start by drawing the Cartesian plane, then you put in your asymptotes, and then you can draw in the graphs. And what I said to you previously was sort of drawing one graph, kind of like think of it as like a banana, and you can never cross the asymptotes. The asymptotes are lines that may not be crossed. Okay, give me a thumbs up if that's looking vaguely familiar. We're going to practice that now, but give me a thumbs up if that looks familiar. Okay, fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, then I am going to hand over to you, and you're going to draw for me this very first hyperbola. And I want you to do the 4 steps of working first. So do that, and then I want you to try and draw it. So work through the first steps. Ask yourself, what is step 1? What is step 2? What is step 3? What is step 4? And you can even tell me in the chat if you're feeling confident. But over to you guys. And Simone, I just want to check you're seeing everything clearly from your side on my slightly smaller screen. Is everything coming through okay?
Yes, everything is perfectly fine.
Great. All right. I just have a little bit less space to see all the comments and do what, all those extra windows. So I might just ask you to do a few more things if I can't get to that, or those, I can't see who's asking questions or things
Not
like
a
that.
problem. I will fill the questions in the chat.
Cool. So I see that that number is a positive, and so I know that that quadrant, those quadrants are going to be involved. Is step number 1. That's my first asymptote. What's my second asymptote going to be? So I know that this thing has to equal 0. And so x equals -4 must be my, so those are my 2 asymptotes. Now I need to find my y-intercept and my x-intercept. I'm going to give you a bit more time. I want you to put your answer for the y-intercept and the x-intercept in the chat, please. So remember, if you're trying to find the asymptotes for a hyperbola, the y-asymptote is just going to be this value over here. And the x-asymptote, you have to do a bit of extra working. You have to say what value of x, if you put it in, would make the denominator 0. And the reason it's an asymptote is it would cause this thing to be undefined. Yeah, so we seem to be getting minus 1.75 for the y-intercept. Now we've got to find the x-intercept. Don't worry, Regan. There's plenty to be just getting started for today. We're just warming up. So what is the x-intercept going to be? Well, I suppose we have to make y equal to 0. And so you have to solve that equation for me. So normally, I suppose I should write below. I shouldn't really write across. So let's do it like this. So 2 equals. Okay, so there's quite a bit more work going into finding what the x-intercept is. Now that you've got all your information, I want you to try and draw this graph for me. So think about Step 1 is to draw your Cartesian plane. Step 2 is to put your asymptotes in place. Step 3 is draw the shapes, and then you have to obviously label the graph. If there are questions about how I got my x-intercept, I'd love to hear from students. So please don't be afraid to raise your hand and we can have a conversation. Can we, as Ayanda's asked, can we find the x asymptote by transferring the 4 on the other side? What you can do, you can, but what you have to start, Ayanda, then you must start by going x plus 4 equals 0. If you do that, when you move the 4 across, it becomes minus 4, yes. Another way of saying it is just looking at the denominator and saying what value of x, if I put it in, will make the denominator 0. Okay. I hope that helps a little bit. We'll see if you can draw the graph. I'll give you a bit of time to set it up, but then I'll start drawing it myself as well, and you can see how someone does it. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see the working. You love the magical thing of zooming in like this. Zooming in on Zoom. Okay. Now what are my asymptotes? I've got x is minus 4. Let me use a different color. And then we've also got y is minus 2. So let's go like this. And so I kind of call it like drawing the field of play. So now I have to decide, well, I know which quadrants I'm drawing in. I'm drawing in this quadrant over here and this quadrant at the bottom. So that one is going to look like this. And this one is going to look like, it's probably not the best. Let me try that again. It looks something like that. And what's the last thing I still need to do? I need to label these 2 points over here. And what are their labels going to be? Well, we've worked it out already. So the y-intercept is minus 1.75. And the x-intercept was minus 3.5. And the name of the graph was the graph F. Let me know in the chat how you're feeling about that question. Like thumbs up if you're feeling like you followed it. Thumbs down if you're feeling like you didn't follow it. Okay. So what I want to do is I want us to have a go at this next one over here, but I'm going to give you one little hint. This one over here is the same as writing minus 4 over x plus 1 minus 3. This means exactly the same thing. And before we even start trying to draw this one, what do you think? I'd love someone to come on board and tell me, because I can see lots of students still need to practice, what is going to be different about drawing this next graph compared to the last one? What is different? I'd love someone to come on and tell me. Can we unmute Orokanisa? Orokanisa, what do you think is different?
Hi, sir.
Hello.
What's different is that we are going to, this is a negative.
Yeah.
A is negative. That means the quadrant is going to be the second and the fourth quadrant.
Yeah. When we draw this, fantastic. When we draw this, we're going to be in these 2 quadrants because of this negative that's here. Okay. So what I want to do is for those students who are feeling uncertain, because I can see there's a couple of you that are not feeling completely comfortable yet. I'm not going to zoom out anymore. I want you to try and use the steps that are still on the screen. And I want you to think about how do we draw this, this next hyperbola, and start by working through the steps. So I'm going to give you guys 2 or 3 minutes to work through those first 3 steps. The fourth step is just to draw it. And then you can put some of your answers in the chat, and those who feel comfortable, you can draw this graph over here. Okay, over to you guys. And if you're feeling unsure, I'd love a question. So don't be afraid to put your hand up and we can chat. But for the rest of you, I want you to give it a go. So step 1, we know we're going to be in those 2 quadrants because of the negative. And for those who are new today, we learned about which quadrants hyperbolas get drawn in previously. So those should be my asymptotes. Are there no questions from students who want to just clarify anything? If not, I'm assuming that you're all working hard. Okay, so I get -2 1/3 as my x intercept. So just to refresh, I made y0, then I moved the 3 across, Then I multiplied the x plus 1 across. Then what did I do? Oh, the -4 was still left behind. I multiplied out the 3 into this. And then I moved that 3 across, which became then in total -7. And then I divided both sides by 3. So now the question is, what does the graph look like that I'm going to draw? And what order would I do it? Looking good, looking good. So I'm going to start with my asymptote. So and then it was x is -1. Notice how I'm labeling my asymptotes so I know where the field of play is. And now the question is, where do I go next? And I go back to my working out and I remember, oh, be careful, because this is a different type of one. It's not going to be in this quadrant, in this quadrant. It's actually going to be in that quadrant and in this quadrant over here. And now I need to think, what are the additional labels I need to label still? Well, the y-intercept was -7, so that looks good to me. And then the x-intercept was -2 1/3. So that also looks good. And we have to label the equation of the graph. It would have been nice if they made it just like f or g or something, and that's it. So again, so when I multiplied out the brackets, I used the FOIL method. Give me another little vote, thumbs up if you felt like you followed that, thumbs down if you didn't. I was thinking, should we squeeze in one more before the break? I think we should do one more before the break. Okay, last question before the break. Draw me that graph over there, -5 over x plus 2. So I'm going to zoom in so everyone can see the last one still, but you can start working that out by yourself. And then after this one, I think we're ready to move on. Draw me that hyperbola. So if you want to screenshot the previous example, feel free to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to move some space out for the next example. So you'll see that I'm saying that this graph has no y-intercept. And the reason is that if I make x 0, in this case, that isn't allowed. It causes division by 0. And what that means is there's no y-intercept in this graph. And that's okay. You'll see now in a moment why that is. Let me know in the chat what you think the x-intercept is. So the x-intercept, I have to solve this equation down here. I haven't done it yet, but I think if I bring it across, I'll get -2 equals -5 over x. And then when I bring this x back, I get -2x is -5, which then leaves me with x is -5 over -2, which is actually positive 2.5 or 2.5 or 5 over 2. So now it's time to draw this. And I will give you some more time for that. What do you think my hyperbola is going to look like? What the hyperbola G is going to look like? Okay, so what's sneaky about this one is the only asymptote that you're going to see is the one that says y equals 2. Now, there is another asymptote for where x is 0, but when x is 0 is just going to be literally on the y-axis. And so we don't actually draw that in because it's already kind of has its own line that's there already. So you only have to, even though you've got two asymptotes, you only have to draw the y equals 2 here. The x is 0 is just going to be the y-axis. There was a question there. Do you want to check in there? Can we unmute? There was a question from a student, if they still want to ask the question. Okay, and then the only intercept that I have here is 5 over 2 or 2.5. There is no y-intercept like we worked out. And so the equation of this graph is just the equation G, and that's it. Hi, what is the question?
Hello, sir. Sir, my
Hey.
screen keeps freezing, sir.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Like-
though? I can help you out.
No, sir. But like every time like you write, sir,
Okay.
it keeps freezing, and then after like a minute or two, then everything comes, and then when you start
Okay.
writing on the graph again, and then it goes, and then it comes again.
So can I make a suggestion? There will be a recording.
sir.
Can I suggest you don't watch the whole recording, but you just watch a couple of the bits, especially the bits when I'm drawing the graph on the
Okay,
recording
sir.
tomorrow. I think you'll find it a lot smoother that way.
Okay, sir. How do I
Thank you
access the recording, sir?
It's on the website. You'll see it literally is on the website there. And you can just watch
Okay,
the
sir.
recording will be available by tomorrow afternoon. And it's a great habit to get into, even just rewatching parts of it a day later.
Sir,
Okay, everyone. Yeah.
Sir, are
Yeah.
the recordings are they on other topics also?
Yes. Yeah. No, we've been doing this for 2 years. There's like every topic under the sun. So you hit the jackpot.
Okay, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you very much, sir.
Cool.
You can unmute me.
Cool.
You can mute me, sir.
Cool, we will do. Everyone, I want you to stand up with me now, and we're going to do a bit of exercise because we've been going for a solid half an hour, and you know my philosophy on maths, you know, you've got to take some time to let your brain unwind. So I want you to start by just shaking out your arms, do whatever it is that makes you feel nice and relaxed, shake out your legs. Make sure you're standing. I can't tell you how fantastic it feels. And then maybe just a little bit of a twisting of the arms. And then maybe like rolling of the shoulders. And then let's do some small circles. Going into big circles. Oh, this feels so nice. And then change direction, big circles into small circles. Okay, and then let's get our heart rates up. What should we do today? Let's do air skipping. So pretend you have a skipping rope. We're going to do 20 air skips, and we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. And that is it. Okay, and then just take a nice deep breath and take a sip of water if you're lucky enough to have some water on standby. We're doing very well today, guys and girls, and I think what I'm going to do is, because of the little bit of time we lost on Monday, I want to move straight into the next part of the lesson. Because I just want to catch up a little bit, and so you'll forgive me if we don't do another little puzzle today. I want to talk about what happens when I give you a graph and you have to work out the equation. And I'd love some comments from the class. So if you are trying to, so we're going to go the other way now. You're not going to draw the graph anymore. You're given a graph, but you need to work backwards to what's called the standard form of the hyperbola. Who thinks they might have a guess about what they could work out first, just looking at the drawing? I want some students, I want to hear some student voices, some good guesses here. Let's unmute Orokanisa. What do you think we'll start with?
Hi, sir.
Hello.
What I will think we'll start with is finding the P and the Q. The P, which is the X asymptotes, and the Q, which is the Y asymptotes.
I agree so much with you. Could you give me one of them, or maybe even two of them if you have? What do you think P and Q are going to be?
P is going to be -1.
Okay. And Q?
Q is going to be -4.
All right. I agree with you on Q. I'm totally agree with you on Q. On P, I disagree slightly. It's not going to be X -1. It's going to be something different. And the reason it's going to be something different, can you remember what we did with making it 0?
Yeah, it's 1. It's going to be 1. Sorry.
Yes. No, fantastic. You have done fantastically well. Thank you, Orokanisa. You are winning at life. Now, I'm almost there, but I need to now figure out what A. I'd like another student to maybe give me their guess on how they think I could find A. Someone who else in the room who can see, look, I've used up the asymptotes information. What other information is on the drawing that maybe I could use? So A is definitely negative because I can see what quadrants we're in. But now I want to know exactly what A it is. Could we unmute Annie? Maybe Annie can help us. Annie, what do you think we should do? Maybe we're having some audio problems there. Can you hear me, Annie? Okay. Melia suggested, I think Annie would have said this too, is that there is another point 0.6 that we can sub in. And if we sub that point in, remember that the x is a 0 and the y is a 6. So I get 6 equals a over 0 plus 1 minus 4. Now, I want everyone in the class to work out for me now, what is the value of a if I have to move these things around now? What is the value of a going to be if I move these things around? You can pop it in the chat. Yes, Artie, I agree with you. You are on the money. So I guess this is going to be a over 1 minus 4. So what does a have to do? Well, this doesn't make much sense. If it's true, there must be a mistake in the question. Yeah, and that doesn't make any sense given the question. So I'll have to look back on that. 0, 6. Oh, I've spotted the problem. Everyone, can you see the question says 0, 6? But at the moment, look at where the graph is. Can this be a 6? There's no ways this can be a 6. What does this have to be? If you look at where it is in terms of the Cartesian plane, this has to be a minus 6. So I want you to change this one over here to minus 6, because there's no ways, if you look at the drawing, that cannot be a 6. It has to be a minus 6. And that will then give us a better answer. Something was a bit strange there. Because I was like, a has to be negative. I knew there was a mistake. So you go -6 plus 4 equals a, and then a will equal -2. Yes, so what is the equation of this hyperbola? It's -2 over x plus 1 minus 4. Look at how much easier that was to do than drawing the graph. So if we get a question like this in the exam, we are very happy because it's nice and easy. So what I want us to do is I am going to give you another question like this, and I want you to work out for me what the equation of this next hyperbola is. So I'm going to make that nice and big. This is a old test question. You can see it's for 4 marks. And I'll leave the other bit of working out on the board if that's helpful. And find me the hyperbola F's equation. Over to the students. And if you have a question, just raise your hand and I can assist you where possible. Can you see the screen okay, Simone?
Yes, I can.
Cool. Oh, Siyabonga. Siyabonga, what is your question?
Sir, how do we determine the values of A, P, and Q?
How do you determine? What did you say, Siyabonga?
Sir?
Yeah.
I'm asking if how do we determine the values of A, P, and Q?
Okay. What I would suggest is that we first look at this value here. What is the value of that asymptote over there? That pink one that I'm trying to not very successfully draw. What's the value of this? Can you work out what that value is?
The value is -2, sir.
Aha. So it's not -2, it's +2. Because if you look here, it's above the x-axis. So it's +2. And that tells us that in the thing that we want to work out, there's a +2 at the end. And then the next thing we have to work out is what happens with the x and something at the bottom here. And for that, we are going to look at this line. Can you see my pink line? What is my pink line going to be? My pink vertical line.
It's
So
4, sir.
Perfect. Yes. Now, if you know the asymptote is x is 4, now it's a bit tricky, but what is going to go over here? It's either going to be +4 or -4.
Yes.
So the trick is to always work a little bit backward. In this case, it's going to be -4 because 4 is the value that would go in here that makes this thing 0. Okay, now you always get the P and Q first. Now you have to work out what A is. What do you think I'm going to use to find A?
Mm.
I think you're going to use 5, 3.
But it's determine the values of A, P, and Q. Nayi, siyenza ngale question.
Cool. So Annie, I'm going to show you. Is that helping? So Annie was Siyabonga. Is that helping a little bit? Okay, cool. Simone, can you just mute the audio stream there? I'm gonna solve this next bit. Very good. I don't know why the screen's changed color. There we go. So now we are gonna go 3 is equal to something over 5 minus 4. Sorry, not 5 minus, yeah, it is 5 minus 4, and it's A plus 2. Now, what is my A value going to be in the end? What is my A value going to be? Yeah. And so the equation of the hyperbola is going to be 1 over x minus 4 plus 2. Where did we get the 3 from? Good question, Zetu. On my graph, can you, oh, flip. Why has it done that? On my graph, can you see that there is the point 5, 3? Now that's the x coordinate and that's the y coordinate. So I'm subbing that point into this expression here. So where there's a y, there's a 3. And where there's an x, I put a 5. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you were following that. Give me a thumbs down if you're feeling a bit unsure with what I was explaining there. And don't be afraid to be honest. Honesty is the best policy. Okay. So again, I think we just need some more practice. So we'll do another one, but just think about what are the steps. It seemed to me like I worked out what P and Q were, or I worked backwards from the asymptotes to get P and Q, and then I subbed in the point that I was given. So let's do one like this. No, let's not do that one. Let's do this one. So actually, no, let's not do that one. Sorry, guys, girls. I'm making your life difficult here, but I want to choose the right one for that gets us the most learning. Okay, here is a hyperbola. I want you to find me the value of A, P, and Q. Go ahead and do your best. Yes, Yabonga, I understand totally. Just watch the last little bits on tomorrow on the recording. So we're trying to find what is the equation of this hyperbola. So you're quite right. Yes. So Annie's asked a good question. So the y asymptote, or the horizontal one, is y equals 2. The other asymptote is going to be x is 0, because you can't see it. And when you can't see it, it's sitting on this thing here. So that's good thinking. So you've got your asymptotes. Now, how can you use that to help you work out what P and Q are? Well, I always think the y is a bit easier. So the y should be 2. The bigger question now becomes, okay, there's an A. What goes at the bottom here? And that's the question I want to ask you guys. What do you think goes in this missing space here? Who feels like they know? Yeah, Siyabonga, what do you think goes there?
X plus 0, say.
Perfect. Yes. Just X all by itself. Fantastic. So I want to then ask, okay, the last thing I have to do is find A. But normally we are given another point. And in this scenario, I think the only point I can see is this point over here. What is the big blue dot over here? What is that point going to be? Yeah, let's go to Amanda. Amanda, what do you think the big blue dot is going to be?
Hi, sir.
Hello.
The point is going to be 2 as x and then 0 as the y.
Perfect. Now, what do I do with this 2, 0?
Then we're going to substitute it to that x over there to the equation. Isn't
Yep.
like it's going to be a over 2, and then the y, the y is 0. So yeah.
Perfect. Yes. In fact, let me make my A look a bit more like an A and not like a 9. Thank you, Amanda. That was fantastic. So to finish this off, I'm just going to move that across. So I get minus 2 equals A over 2. And I multiply both sides by 2. And then I get A is minus 4. And so the equation of this hyperbola is equal to y equals minus 4 over x plus 2.
Yes.
Yeah. Yay, look at us. We are winning. Okay, everyone. So I'm going to call it a night for tonight, because the last 2 lessons, on Monday's lesson, we learned how to draw hyperbolas. And today we practiced drawing more hyperbolas. And then we looked at how to find the equations of hyperbolas. And so that has been our journey. Now, there are a few more things that you can do with hyperbolas in terms of like finding how they interact with other graphs. But I think these last 2 lessons give us a nice base to understand the hyperbola by itself. And so, yeah, we will come back to them a little bit maybe in the last lesson, but I think that we're going to call it a night for tonight.